The Celestial Empire, or Points and Pickings of Information about China and the Chinese, by George Mogridge. Chapter 7. All about opium. You shall now have a few words about opium. The Turks chew it, and the Chinese smoke it. Whether it is chewed or smoked, it is of an intoxicating nature. Remember that intemperance may be practiced in other ways than that of smoking or chewing opium. Excess has swept its thousands from the world. Youth, maturity, and age have been its victims. Nor is lovely woman free from its hateful control. Opium, as I dare say you well know, is the juice of the white poppy. In Asiatic Turkey, whole fields of poppies are grown, and in Bengal and Malwa in the East Indies, still larger tracts of land are cultivated for the purpose of obtaining opium. A great number of people are occupied when the petals begin to fall, in wounding the unripe capsule or seed receptacle of each flower with a double-bladed knife, or rather lancet, that the milky juice may ooze out. When the heat of the sun has candied or dried into a substance the milky juice, it is scraped off, and this is the opium of which I am about to speak. It passes through a refining process before it is used for smoking, and is often mixed up with different kinds of conserves. The opium sold in England is frequently much adulterated. By the refining process an extract is obtained of which morphia is the essential ingredient. It is extremely powerful. The refuse after the extract has been obtained is sold to poorer people, and sometimes it is made up with tobacco into cheroots. Having told you what opium is, let me next describe the way in which the opium trade was carried on. I say was carried on, for how it is carried on now, or how it will be conducted in future, is a problem that I cannot solve. You shall have all that I know about it in a few words. At one time, opium was admitted into China only as a medicinal drug, and here let me remind you that there is not a single natural production of the earth but what is useful in some way or other. The most injurious herb, the most poisonous plant that grows, is of great service to the human frame in cases of disease when skillfully applied. What infinite wisdom and goodness does this fact proclaim! But though, as I said, opium was admitted as a drug only, it afterwards, on account of its intoxicating qualities, became an article of luxury, and then depot or store ships were stationed at Whampoa to receive the opium from the clippers, fast-sailing vessels, which brought it from India. From the depot ships, it was conveyed in boats to the shore. It was, I think, in the year 1820 that the Chinese government issued a proclamation that opium should no longer be admitted into China, and in consequence the opium store ships were obliged to remove lower down the Canton River, fixing their anchorage off the island of Lintin. But when the typhoons or violent storms prevailed, they moved for greater security to the Kam Sing Moon. This latter place was a fine harbour, formed by the mainland and islands in the river, where the ships might safely ride in almost any weather. You can hardly conceive a busier or more picturesque scene than that at Kam Sing Moon. Vessels of different kinds were there at anchor, and among them the depot ships, while the clippers and other craft were supplying the precious though pernicious drug. Smuggling boats, 60 or 80 feet long, with their high masts, mat sails, and decks hatched over, pulling as many as 30 or 40 oars were seen, either alongside the storeships or busily employed in coming for or carrying away opium. The red, white, and blue bamboo caps of the rowers catching the eye of the spectator. There they were, the storeships stationary, but clippers, launchers, cutters, and jolly boats urging their way through the foaming waters. Look where you would, you saw people employed, and the decks of the opium vessels gave evident proof of great wealth. Cakes of Malwa opium, balls of Benares and Patna, boxes of Saisi or lump silver, bags of dollars and chests of opium in all directions. If you could have had one glance at the scene, you would not soon have forgotten Kam Sing Moon. You may perhaps think that because the government of China had forbidden the introduction of opium, the smuggling part of the business was carried on at midnight, but no! It was in the broad blaze of the midday sun that the smuggling boats, called by the mandarins fast crabs and scrambling dragons, carried on their traffic. And for this simple reason, the Chinese admirals, mandarins, and officers whose duty it was to stop the trade connived at its continuance on account of the profit they derived from it. Not a chest, not a single cake of opium was sold without their receiving upon it a certain sum. Often would they threaten terrible things to the barbarians coming down the river in their vessels to make a display of force. But as often did they go back again, doing nothing more than sending to the government an exaggerated account of their vigilance and severity. One instance on record so strikingly sets forth the fact that the Chinese in authority encouraged smuggling, even while, to keep up their credit with the government, they punished smugglers, that I must not withhold it. It is related on good authority that certain Chinese magistrates, on occasion, took off the heads of 13 smugglers, and that, not many hours after this, they sent to the foreigners to say that notwithstanding what had occurred, they were ready to admit opium on exactly the same terms on which it was admitted before. O China, China, Mammon that is worshipped in every land under heaven, has a shrine in all thy cities and in all thy ports. Greedy, griping, grasping Mammon. Sordid Mammon, shrewd and keen, gazes round with cruel mien, and clutches with a greedy hand the golden spoil of every land. When you think of an opium smoker, you must not imagine him inhaling the narcotic drug in the shape of a cigar, nor stuffing it like tobacco into the open bowl of a pipe, nor sitting upright with a spittoon at his feet and a lighted candle, a spill can, and a roll of shag or short cut before him. Your opium smoker is a man of a different complexion. The opium smoker leans or lies along, but with his head raised while he revels in his enjoyment. A wooden tray is before him, and on it are seen his ivory opium boxes, his lamps, and his steel or silver needle, some 5 or 6 inches long. The stem of his pipe is, perhaps, of cane, turned black from use. It is near 1.5 feet in length and about 1 inch in diameter. The mouthpiece may be of horn or ivory, while the other end is covered with copper inlaid with silver. To this is fitted a bowl of fine clay, 3 inches across, of the shape of a flattened turnip, with a hole on the upper part not much bigger than a pin's head. Through this small hole a little opium is put after it has been applied to the lamp, on the point of the needle, and the smoker draws up the seducing and intoxicating vapor through the tube by the power of his lungs. So potent is the influence of opium that though an opium smoker will continue his enjoyment for hours, and after taking a cup of tea begin again as fresh as ever, yet 2 or 3 whiffs of the pipe would be quite as much as you could bear. Opium is too expensive an extract to be enjoyed in all its perfection by the poor. The rich only can afford to use it fresh every time they smoke. The dregs of a rich man's pipe are carefully collected to be enjoyed by an inferior smoker. Opium pipes are often so made that the vapor is drawn through water or scented liquid, much in the same way as in the hookah or hubble bubble of India. You may have seen the bloated and blotched face of a confirmed drunkard and marked his shaking hand and tottering gait. A sad figure he cuts, but not so bad as that of the confirmed opium smoker, who in addition to the lank and shriveled limb, besides the weak voice and sallow visage, has a fearful foreboding expression, a hollowed eye, vacant solemnity, as though death had set a mark upon his victim, dooming him to an untimely grave. There are sad scenes among opium smokers, as there are, indeed, among drunkards. But as few strangers would like to mingle among them, so are they for the most part hidden from view. There are opium smokers in China of all grades and shades, from the mandarins to the coolies, but the great body of them is principally composed of the idle, the vicious, and the abandoned. Some smoke a little, but few of them can long practice the moderation with which they begin. Opium smoking is a sort of inclined plane, down which he who ventures to slide a little way is tolerably sure to go to the bottom. Let us look about us, that we fall not into evil. They may be stung by the ant who are not injured by the elephant. They may be led away by the intoxicating glass who never smoked opium. What says Holy Scriptures on this subject? Who hath woe, who hath sorrow, who hath contention, who hath babbling, who hath wounds without cause, who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine, look not then upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his colour in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Some people who propose remedies to the evil of the opium trade think it would be better if the Chinese government would admit opium like any other commodity on paying a duty, and thus do away with the smuggling trade altogether, while others say that before the opium trade is discontinued, China must have a more liberal government. Foreign commerce must shed its healthy influence on the country, changing the manners of the people. Institutions encouraging temperance and good conduct must be established. And the gospel of the Redeemer, the great restrainer of all evil, must be spread abroad at the hearts of the people. When the Chinese had made up their minds to do away with the opium trade, they warned the English to quit the station they occupied. The name of the admiral of the Fo-Kien squadron was Chin, and the name of the commander of the garrison of Kinmu and other places was Tao. And you would have thought, judging by their valorous proclamation, that Chin and Tao were desperate fellows indeed. They launched their wordy thunderbolts freely against the foreigners who dared to disobey the laws of heaven's dynasty, commanding them to quit the coast at once. But you must hear a little of their language. Along the boundaries of our country we shall place 1,000 ships of war, numerous as the stars and disposed in array like a chessboard. At the first call they will immediately respond. One cannot resist a host, and it is to be feared that when the admiral of the station and the commander of the garrison unite their troops, thick as congregated clouds, you will not be able to sustain their attack. But we military and naval commanders do not wish to kill you in cold blood without warning you of the consequences of your present line of conduct. Therefore, we specially proclaim to you beforehand, and if you have any wisdom, you will immediately return, a circumstance at which we shall truly rejoice. This idle boasting is a part of the Chinese character. In contending with Europeans, their words are mighty, but their blows are feeble. Not there triumphantly to ride in battle's iron car, to wield the lightning and to guide the thunderbolts of war. It would be easy to sum up the whole opium affair at once by telling you that when the Chinese government determined to stop the trade, Governor Lin repaired to Canton as High Commissioner, that he placed in confinement for 6 or 7 weeks 200 British merchants and the British Commissioner, threatening them with death, and that he seized and burned more than 20,000 chests of opium worth $20 million. But as these and other proceedings were the immediate, though not the sole, cause of bringing about a war with China, I must dwell upon them a little longer in another chapter. Governor Lin thought that he had effected his purpose of putting an end to the opium trade, but he was mistaken. He only increased his troubles by his severity. If ever man fulfilled the old adage of leaping out of the frying pan into the fire, it was he.